This so-called 12 tribes chart, right? I don't have a problem with it necessarily. It's just that I just don't like when they say every single person, for example, of the Caribbean is Benjamin, or every single person in Black America is Judah, or every single person in Haiti is Levi. Because when you think about it, that's not really the case. Because a lot of Israelites migrate into Africa beside the Southern Kingdom. You have the bulk of the 10 tribes, the northern tribes, that flee into Africa as well. And when I study certain ethnic groups that claim to be northern, they were put on slave ship as well. So you can't say that. But I'll break it down to you. What I can say though is that the 12 tribes chart does have accuracy with what it's saying. Judah being the Americas, yes, you can definitely see that. Benjamin being the Caribbean, that's possible. But you can't say every Caribbean person is that. Levi being in Haiti, a large concentration of Levites are in Haiti. But you do have half of them that come from the royal line of Judah. And this is what I'm about to get into. So check it out. So, the same ship that brought slaves to the United States and the Caribbean, these slaves came from the same family. One brother, like for example, you would have one brother in Barbados, the next in New Orleans. Even George Washington exchanged slaves from Barbados. One cousin in Grenada, the other in Trinidad. Jamaica had split families with Cuba, Guyana, and Barbados, etc. All these countries eventually gained independence from the British, but that's all they gained, apart from the knowledge of being ex-slaves. Now they control their own destiny, leading to the path of doom. They all still worship the white gods. These countries are now led by the black Christian leaders with the same spiritual philosophy that enslaved their parents before them. Those who control their own land have reduced it to ruin, and those that have adopted the white man's land are also in ruin and poverty, stricken, just like the days of the old when the Israelites had to go to Egypt for food, and black people are now fleeing in large numbers to the United States, Britain, and Canada. And funny thing is, with most black people, yes, most of my family are in Britain and in the States, and I only have a few of them in Canada. Very, very true. To be an Israelite, you would have to be a leader, a teacher, do the will of God. You cannot be wrong. An Israelite doesn't kiss a boot. He is of the truth. An Israelite is not black. An Israelite is not white. He's not a Muslim nor Christian. He's right. He keeps the laws, the statutes, and commandments. He's strong in God, spirit, and self. No Israelite should bend his knee. No Israelite in poverty. No Israelite should walk in vain. No Israelite should be ashamed. Love God, love self, your brethren too. Love all, not the world, just close to you. Reach out to help the one that's near. Look up for help, and he'll be there. Brethren means brother and sister too. Guys, this is Professor Williams Carter back here again. I recommend you guys get this book, Eve Okamusu, called Black People's Identity, about the Eve people, which I tell you, they are the real Judeans. They're in the land of the kingdom of Judah. And I'll discuss with you what's in this book, but please get it. This is on Amazon. Get it now, before they don't sell it anymore. Now let's go. In Europe and the Americas, descendants of African slaves, desirous of knowing their true identity, have turned to DNA to trace their roots back to Africa. Unfortunately, this scientific tool has not provided the answers hoped for. Because of this, the answers to finding out what their true roots are continues to be elusive. The good news is you don't have to worry about where in Africa your ancestors came from anymore. I'd give you the answers right now. By the time you finish this booklet, your quest to know your true identity will be fulfilled. It is not only the descendants of the slaves who are about to learn their true identity, but millions of people in West Africa, from whom most black people in the diaspora in the Americas originated, are about to discover new information about their origins. Therefore, just as the information here will help our brothers and sisters across the Atlantic to discover their identity, so it will help millions in West Africa get to know their origins, their proper name, and identity as well. Just like what I said in the previous lesson. Slave coast. To begin providing these answers, let's take a look back into West Africa during the slave trade and focus our attention in an area called the slave coast. Transatlantic slave trade is the name for the slave trade that took place between West Africa, the American continent, and Europe. During that period in history, the European traders in West Africa named various places based on what commodities they traded with the locals. For example, where the main commodity was gold, the area became known as the Gold Coast, which is your present-day Ghana. Where the trade was in ivory, where they named it Ivory Coast, and so forth. However, there was an area you may not have heard of. This place was bigger than the Gold Coast and Ivory Coast combined. This was the Slave Coast, which is the Kingdom of Judah, Beta Benin, which is right here. Slave Coast. Most of the slaves taken to the Americas, Europe, and the Caribbean were mainly from the Slave Coast. However, despite slavery being the biggest trade in West Africa, many people have never heard of the Slave Coast because of this. Some descendants of the slaves in Europe, America, and the Caribbean mistakenly associate the Gold Coast, now called Ghana, to be the main source of slavery to America. Therefore, it is not surprising to hear many Caribbean and Black Americans claim Ghana as their ancestral home. Due to the era that Black people living in Europe and America seeking their roots, traveled to Ghana, formerly Gold Coast, hoping to fill in the missing gaps in their ancestral history. These spent the time visiting the forts and castles that were holding cells of slaves, hoping to find a connection. So yeah, most of the slaves taken to America were from the Slave Coast. Local history of that area supports this fact. Therefore, since most of the slaves came from this area in West Africa, it is the people in this area I will concentrate on to show the identity of many of our people. Thus, throughout this booklet, it is the people living in the area formerly called Slave Coast that we'll be discussing. For answers from people living around the castles in Ghana would be a waste of time. Gold Coast, Ghana. That's what the book is saying, not me. But going by maps of West Africa, around here, the Slave Coast extended from the Volta River in Ghana all the way to present-day southwestern Nigeria, or even the whole part of southern Nigeria. 4 countries, namely Ghana, Togo, and Dahomey, which is modern-day Benin, and Nigeria, now occupy this area. As you can see it covered a significant large part of West Africa. It is the Ewe people living in this area of West Africa and their descendants in Europe and America. That is the subject of our discussion. Pretty much, guys, the Israelites are pretty much all over West Africa and Central, but this book here is just discussing about the Ewe people. And this is the picture of the Israelites that were black. Look at the hair. Look at it. That's what I'm talking about. I would like to tell you guys more about this book, but you guys would have to read it on your own. Please read it, guys. This is about our history, and guys, we need to wake up. Get this book by Evio Gamusu, Black People's Identities. Professor Williams Carter, stay tuned. About the Kingdom of Judah, I have this to say about the Black Jews of Dahomey. By Dr. J. Kreppel, a guy, he's an author, right? I read his book. He reported that in the year 1926 that there existed a large Israelite community of Black Jews in the interior of Dahomey, West Africa, which is modern-day Benin, Togo. He said that these Israelites have their own central temple where they sacrifice animals. In their temple are found many laws engraved on tablets, which are attached to the temple walls. They have a high priest with a large number of priestly families, which is the Levites, whose members walk from house to house, rendering educational and religious instructions to each family of the community. Moreover, these Israelites have their own Chumash, the 5 books of Moses, written on old parchment in Hebrew letters, but they have no other books. What little Hebrew they possess was transmitted to them from their ancestors. He said that they observed the Sabbath and other Hebrew customs, despite the pressure from their pagan environment, which would be the other Hamite Africans that he's talking about. About the kingdom of Judah, I have this to say about the Black Jews of Dahomey. By Dr. J. Kreppel, a guy, he's an author, right?